Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, now if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Yes. So I'm with you now. I wish that you benefit from this lecture. And anyway, any lecture, we can go more deep and speak a lot. Knowledge never finishes. But anyway, we are forced to only speak in. We are forced to not go so deep and to scatter so that we can finish quickly our lecture. So if you have any question, if you have any details you want to ask about, if you have any comments, I'll be happy to listen to you. So Brother Amin says, Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have a question about the hadith about the basmala. You said it was da'if. Imam al-Nawawi in his sharh on Muslim says it's Hassan li ghayrihi. Can you elaborate on this hadith? Yes. Al-Imam Muhammad Ja'far rahimahullah himself has a book called Al-Aqawil al-Mufassala li Ahadith al-Ibtida'i bil-Basmala. It's in one volume and it's published. And he says that, and he mentions that this hadith actually it's weak. And actually it's weak. It's weak when you go back to the chains and stuff like that. It's weak. It is supported by other narrations, but the other narrations speak about Alhamdulillah, not al-Basmala. كل أمر ذي بال لا يبدأ فيه بالحمد لله رب العالمين فهو أبتر أجدم etc. This hadith of Alhamdulillah is, you can say it's hadith Hasan, although it has a problem in its chain as well. Would it be a problem to depend on weak hadith in light of the supportive evidence you mentioned? Well, no problem, but anyway, it's actually so weak, not only weak, but why should we do that? And we have other things that support what we're speaking about. Because when we say it, we will start because the Quran started by Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And because all of the letters or messages of the Prophet ﷺ started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Therefore, we don't need this hadith anymore. Did you say that the author wrote the poem? The author wrote the poem. Yeah, Sheikh Muhammad Ja'far Kettani wrote this poem in the way of the Ash'aris, in the way that we're going to mention right now. Actually, I spoke about this. It's similar to the books of Imam Sanusi, who was the great Imam of the latest Ash'aris in North Africa. But actually, he doesn't go in details, and what he mentions is similar to all scholars mention, actually. So I'm going to show that, inshallah. So that's why we studied this poem. It doesn't go in details to differentiate between Ash'ari or Athari or whatever. It speaks about an Islamic creed, and that's all. That's all it speaks about. Okay, Brother Bilal says, if one missed some minutes, does one have to make the whole course again to get the ijazah? No problem about that. That always happens. You can't be, we're not so strict in that. Because the ijazah, anyway, it's, the ijazah, it covers any parts that you didn't hear or you missed or something like that. Yes. Okay. Okay, Brother Amin says, thank you. The answer is very clear. It is the book of Al-Aqawil Al-Mufassala. Yes, it's published in Damascus. Oh, about 20 years ago it was published. I only found a very old edition from Medina. No, it's published and it's edited by Sheikh Isam Arar, the student of my grandfather, one of the specialized students of Damascus. He's in Damascus in Hadith. Sheikh Isam Arar. Yes. Yes. Okay, Brother Iyad says, what's your opinion, Sheikh, on poems versus regular texts? I didn't understand your question, brother. Sister Nur al-Huda, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You mentioned that there was a Shia took over Medina, Shia took over Medina, etc. Can you tell us more about it, please? Yeah, look, when after Imam Malik passed away, and in the days of Imam Malik, there was a big revolution against the Abbasids by Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan ibn Abdullah ibn Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and he was called An-Nafs al-Zakiyah. And he is the elder brother of Imam Idris, who escaped to Morocco. So he rebelled against Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, the Abbasid Caliph, and his brother was in al-Basra in Iraq, and they were killed after that. So the government wanted to revenge against the people of Medina because they supported Imam Nafs al-Zakiyah, so they didn't take care of Medina after that. There were, later on, the students of Imam Malik took place, like Abu Mus'ab al-Zuhri and others, but after that, the whole Abbasid empire started to become weak and started to lose its authority on other far places from it. So the Shia, who were the Fatimids took place in Egypt, and then they took place in Hijaz, in North Africa and Hijaz. And they took all Hijaz. So they started humiliating the Sunnis, and they started implementing their false doctrine. And some families took place there in Hijaz, and they ruled Medina from the people who are considered as Bedouins from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. Sometimes some Zaydis took place in Hijaz, and they started ruling Hijaz by their type of doctrines, which humiliated the Sunni doctrine. And some of them were fanatic, like the Fatimids, who were actually Ismailites. They're not even the Shia that we know. They're extreme Shia, and that stayed in Hijaz until Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi rahimahullah took place, and he kicked them from Egypt, and he finished their state. And then he took place in Hijaz and Sham, and then he made the Shafi'i madhab an official madhab. And then after that, the Mamlukis came, and they made the four madhab as an official madhab, which rules everywhere and takes place everywhere. So this is the story of the Shia who ruled most of the eastern country, even North Africa and lots of places from the 3rd, 4th century. 3rd, 4th century, yes. And Al-Imam Ibn Farhun had a lot of problems with them. They nearly killed him because he started preaching and teaching people the Madini jurisprudence, which is the Maliki jurisprudence. So he resurrected the Maliki jurisprudence in Medina. This is the story of that. Yes. During this course, I'm hearing Ash'ari, Salafi, and Athari. What exactly is the difference between the Athari and Salafi, as this is slightly puzzling? Now the word Salaf means past. The word Salaf means past. The word Athar means something that's something like an antique. You say Athar, this is antique. But it's in the terms of Mustalah al-Hadith, it means all of the narrations that are derived from the Prophet ﷺ and his companions and the great Imams. So the one who focuses on that and focuses on the belief and creed and the way, style of religion that was in the 3 beginning centuries, they call him Salafi, they call him Athari. They call him Salafi, they call him Athari. Now, in the 4th century, after the Mu'tazilites took place and they influenced Al-Ma'mun, who was the Caliph, Ma'mun, son of Harun Rashid, the Abbasid Caliph. So he went implementing the Mu'tazilites' doctrine and forced people to follow it. The Mu'tazilites' doctrine is derived from theology, from Greek theology. It depends a lot on Greek theology, which makes it reject many narrations, many meanings, Quranic meanings, which made the Sunni scholars, which were the majority of scholars in that era, which are the great Imams in that era, they condemned that doctrine and they found that it's an astray doctrine. Although Mu'tazilites actually in the beginning wanted to defend Islam against atheism and against all other doctrines that are against Islam. But because they didn't have a lot of knowledge from the tradition, the Sunnah, so they started using their rational mind, their logic, which is actually based on the Greek theology or the Greek logic, and led them to reject a lots of Islamic beliefs. So Sunni scholars had a lot of trouble and a lot of hard time with Al-Ma'mun and then his brother Al-Mu'tasim and then his son Al-Wathiq, until his son Al-Mutawakkil came and stopped this massacre and this disaster. And a lot of scholars were tortured, a lot of scholars were imprisoned and died in prison, and a lot of them were forced to say what they don't believe. But the one that rose up his voice and said all of this is against the Sunnah is Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. So he became the great Imam of the Sunnis wherever they go, because he was so strict and so clear in condemning this wrong or this false doctrine. That doesn't mean following him in the branches of his jurisprudence. No, we're speaking about theology. We're speaking about the creed. So later on, when Imam Ahmad passed away, rahimahullah, he passed in the year 242. Later on, there was an imam that was Mu'tazilites for about 40 years. And then he went studying and he decided to become Sunni because he discovered that creed is a false creed. The Mu'tazili creed is false. So he was in Basra, and he is from the descendants of Sahabi Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu. His name is Abu Hassan Ali ibn Ismail al-Ash'ari. And he said that I'm now following the Sunnah and I'm following Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So this means that Imam al-Ash'ari used to follow the Sunni creed. And that's what we find in his books. He supports the Sunni creed, he defends the Sunni creed, and he is against all other creeds, all other doctrines, false doctrines. And he says clearly that my Imam is Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And he's my leader. And I mentioned somewhere else in another lecture that Hanbalis and Ash'aris in the beginning were all brothers, all Sunnis actually. These are students of Ahmad and these are students of Ash'ari. But Ash'ari, he used theology to defend the Sunni creed. In the beginning, he had some mistakes, but it's not a big deal because it wasn't so clear, and it was just, maybe it was a small mistake, so people didn't pay attention to that. But later on, after generations, those mistakes started to grow, and the relationship between the Ash'aris and the Atharis, so-called, or especially the Hanbalis, between brackets, because it's not only Hanbalis, it's actually lots of scholars that were Shafi'is, Malikis, Hanbalis, Zahiris, all of them are on the same creed. The relationship started growing and growing and growing. And I mentioned that once one Shaykh started giving, his name is Abu Nasr al-Qushayri, he gave a lecture in the great masjid in Baghdad, and he said a very horrible word that made a battle explode between the two groups, and they started fighting with each other. He said that, he mentioned a verse in the Quran, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا, and Sulaiman didn't reject religion, but the Satans rejected religion. Then he said, and وَمَا كَفَرَ أَحْمَدُ وَلَكِنَّ الْحَنَابِلَةَ كَفَرُوا, and Ahmad didn't reject, but the Hanbalis rejected. Oh, that made a big problem. And they started fighting with each other. And things went worse later on when lots of scholars, lots of leaders of the Ash'ari school weren't scholars of hadith, and they didn't know hadith, but they were very capable and deep in theology. So they implemented the theological rulings in the religion that made them go more far. And some Hanbalis went fanatic on the other side. They went fanatic on the other side, which made the problem go far. Always there were scholars that were balanced, and they used to call people all to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and be on the right path. And this is our way. We call everybody. We're not Hanbali. We're not Ash'ari. We're Muslims. We follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But I'm mentioning now in the history, the Prophet ﷺ, look, brothers and sisters, this is very important. The Prophet ﷺ was asked. He said, he was asked by Hudayfa ibn Yaman radiallahu anhu, and Hudayfa said, God, Messenger of Allah, we were in a very bad situation, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent you for us, so things were good. Is there after this something going to be worse again? He says yes. So he said, and after that, is there something going to be good again? He said yes, but it has some problems in it. قال نعم وفيه دخن. قال هل بعد هذا الشر من خير؟ قال نعم وفيه دخن. Dakhan, that means it's not pure good. It's good, but not pure. He said, وما دخنه قال قوم يهتدون بغير هدي ويستنون بغير السنة تعرف منهم وتنكر. People who follow another path, not my path, and they don't follow my sunnah, not my way and not my path, you would know many things that they do, which is good, and you would reject some other things. And this is what happened after the three righteous generations, where lots of scholars, can find mistakes here, mistakes here, mistakes here. You can't take everything pure. That's why Imam Malik rahimahullah said a very important word. He said, "Kullu minna raddun wa mardudun alayhi la sahib al-qabr." All of us you can reject and take from us, except the one who is lying in that grave. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He means the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's why we respect all our scholars. We consider them all our scholars, no matter they're Ash'ari, Hanbali, or whatever. We reject anything that is against the Sunni creed that we learned, and that is still conserved in the books. We still have it in the books. I mean, there's nothing lost, alhamdulillah. So this is what I want to say. Okay, Brother Salim says, Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Are there scholars say that the word Allah is derived from, the word ilah is derived from Allah and not Allah from ilah? Because Allah is the first. No, Allah, I don't know actually, but I know that Allah is derived from ilah. Allah is derived from ilah. This is what I know. Do we take the Ash'aris and Maturidis as one group? No, Ash'aris are not like Maturidis, no. There are differences between them and I mentioned this in the lecture that in the Al-Aqidah Al-Tahawi that I gave, and you might have it if you want. It's one of the lectures that you can take if you want. It's not part of the curriculum, but it's a voluntarily lecture. I mentioned the difference between Atharis, Ash'aris, Maturidis. Mostly the Maturidis are close, very close to the Ash'aris, and the differences between them, it's about 16. Some scholars say 16 things, and some say less than that. So they aren't exactly like each other, no. Because the Maturidis are all Hanafis, where the Ash'aris are Malikis and Shafi'is. Malikis and Shafi'is, yes. Okay, how do we understand what is said about the Imam al-Ghazali, Imam al-Haramain, and Imam al-Razi, and others leaving what they were on before death and died believing what Ahl Sunnah believed? No, actually, it's not like that. Actually, let us not exaggerate. But what I can say that these three Imams, Al-Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah was so deep in theology, but later on he became a Sufi, and he became deep in Tasawwuf, and he said that the Sufi path is the most accepted path. And in the end of his life, he said, I wish that I didn't lose my time in theology and all these things. And he died, and he was reading Sahih Bukhari. So he said that he said he wished that he could have spent his time in reciting Sunnah and reading it rather than theology. The same thing for Imam al-Haramain rahimahullah, who is the professor of Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Haramain actually he was very knowledgeable in all types of knowledge, but he wasn't in hadith. He's not known as muhaddith at all. So actually, he regrets in the last of his life, and he wished that if he didn't go and enter all these things, that all these books that he read that are against Islam. And he said that. He said, I read a lot of things and those he said, I didn't benefit from that. I wish I spent my time and believed like my grandma believes. That's it. Why should I lose my time in theology, which loses a lots of time? The same thing for Imam Al-Razi, who actually wrote a lots of books in theology, and sometimes he said some things that are very actually hard to say, and that aren't proper actually. So in the end of his life, he discovered that he wished. Actually, this is not only them. Even Ibn Taymiyyah said, "I wish I didn't go. I didn't speak. I didn't talk about a lot of things, and I just spent my time reciting Quran and understanding Quran." So people in the end of their lives, they regret and they start going back and thinking about what they did in their lives. Wallahu ta'ala alam, this is what I believe. Because theology and these things are very, very hard. That's why our scholars condemned theology, ilm al-kalam, condemned it, and said that it's a knowledge that just loses time and that makes you go, it loses your mind. Okay. Sheikh Hanbali fiqh have some mistakes. Well, any human being work has mistakes in it. I can't tell you Hanbali fiqh or Malik or Shafi'i. All these schools are schools, and you can find inside the same school several opinions. So no one of them is perfect. Actually, it's not a revelation. Actually, it's opinions and ideas and stuff like that. Do we know the story of the other sons of Idris? Well, there are lots of there. You can go to historical books. They mentioned lots of that. Sheikh, I heard the people. It's obligatory. I heard from people. It's obligatory to call yourself Salafi or Salafiyya, etc. My question is, if we respect all Imam and 4 authentic madhab, and don't call ourselves from the madhab, but take good from all of the madhab, or we will call ourselves from the madhab or Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, now for me, I believe that to study any book, you have to start with an easy book, and then go to something that is more deeper, until you start reading the biggest thing. And this is the normal thing. Like a child, he starts drinking milk, and then starts eating things that are easy, and then when he has teeth, he starts eating bread and stuff like that. Now, if you go from the beginning and reading everything, you get lost. So you have to start with a madhab and understand it and improve step by step until you understand it, because it's a school. And when we speak about madhab, it's not just speaking about how to pray, put your hand here, or whatever. No, you're speaking about a deep school. The same thing when we study Creed, you start with something easy. When you recite Quran, you start with something easy, etc. So, and to call yourself Salafi or not Salafi or whatever, well, you just call yourself Sunni, who follows the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and that's it. You refer yourself to the Prophet ﷺ, yes. So I think this is enough for today. And we will meet inshallah next week. Thank you very much for being patient with me. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. If you have any thing else, or else this is the end. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.